sisters. How are you doing this morning? It's a Sunday morning, first Sunday of Ramadan 24. I hope that you are all wide awake and full of positive energy like Zed. So today, I've got some wonderful guests with me on the program, and I hope that you're awake. If you're not awake, you'll have to do a catch-up later on one of the many social media programs. You are listening right now to Zed on Radio Ramadan. Straight off, I'm going to tell you about our telephone number so you can call in when you're ready, 0116 48 22086, to make some intelligent questions or make some intelligent comments. And of course, the WhatsApp SMS is 077 488 55055. If you are overseas, then don't forget the +44 or 0044, whichever suits you. So today we're going to be talking about many issues that are prevalent in our community, in our country, and far, far, far away in other countries as well. Incidents that are happening across the globe have come back right on our street to create a lot of issues and a lot of division, fear, a lot of fear as well. So the question is, I'll be asking all of you, is, are you at all a willing executioner? Do we pick and choose when we say the word extremism? Who is extremist? Are we becoming Nazis? That is what today we're going to discuss that in detail. And a lot of irony is here. So today, joining me is a good brother, Mr. Ossama Danashire, and he's going to also talk to us about how things are panning out in his area in the Middle East. He's based there in the UAE. And if you're online with us, Brother Ossama, right now, Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah. Alaikum salam.
I see that you are in a very nice sunny place right now and full of energy. Behind you, I can see the skies. How are you this morning?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Not bad. Yeah.
How is
Nice
Ramadan?
Sunday, easy Sunday.
Yeah, how is Ramadan in UAE?
It's beginning to hot up,
It is.
but
yeah.
it's short days. Actually, very short days. I prefer a summer Ramadan, I think. You know, when we're fasting until about 9 o'clock, 9:30.
What in the UK here, the fasting is around 6:10. What time is it with you?
Oh, ours is longer then. 6:45.
I see.
6:40.
A little longer, right? So today.
Yeah, about that half an hour, it makes a lot of difference, doesn't it?
Okay, we're going to go straight into it now. We're going to discuss about industrial violence like we have never seen before, right? Are you familiar with industrial violence?
Fairly familiar. Watched a lot of the Holocaust movies. Read Robert Fisk's book, Pity the Nation, which actually started, the first chapter was his visit to Auschwitz. So, yeah, quite familiar.
So you can see now we have seen infrastructure being destroyed, hospitals, universities, schools, total decimation to a rubble in Gaza, in Palestine. And we are all concerned about where we are going, all the players complicit in this project. And starvation, water, electricity, cases in the ICJ, International Court of Justice. Where are we going on all of this?
I really don't know, but I think we have to look at where we started before we know where we're going. And I think it genuinely, it's sort of, I go back to the debasement, essentially the sense of insanity that has gripped Europe in particular, back to the days of COVID. I remember in Christmas 2020 when I was briefly back in Britain, remarking to a friend of mine, very good friend of mine, another Liverpool fan actually, Justin, with whom I worked in Egypt, still stay in touch. And I remarked the following. I said, if you can scare people sufficiently to allow them to voluntarily imprison themselves and get them to be jabbed and become guinea pigs in relation to a giant pharmaceutical experiment, then you can get them to do anything. What was particularly striking was the way the Germans and the Austrians actually took on the COVID narrative. Complete inability to use any common sense. And I think I thought that he thought I was exaggerating at the time. I said, but look, if you can scare enough people to imprison themselves over an imaginary fear to a certain extent, then surely I now understand how it was that the German people were allowed and were indoctrinated into committing one of probably the biggest acts of manslaughter, industrial scale slaughter in history, whether it was against Jews, Roma, or Russians, or Yugoslavs. So I think that's where we started. The question is where we're heading. No one knows, but it just looks bleaker and bleaker because there is just no adults or mature people in Europe anymore, it seems. There's just nobody in a position of responsibility who's just going to tamp things down. It's lurches from one extreme to the other, and it's right across virtually all the political spectrum. And every conceivable opportunity, I think, unfortunately, that Britain was given to actually give the country to somebody who can lead it properly. Forces of extremism appear to have scuppered that. I'll give you an example. Ultimately, where we are at the moment in Britain, it's all our responsibility. Because as bad as we thought Gordon Brown was, he actually had a sense of integrity. As bad as Theresa May we thought was, again, she had a sense of dignity and integrity about her. You know, she had a certain element of morality. And collectively, I think we as a British population, I was one of them. I got to confess, I disliked Gordon Brown. I disliked Theresa May. I thought they were incompetent, almost robotic. But you know what? I'd rather have people with that personality, that sense of integrity that those two people have. And, you know, only we can turn back the clock. I think we owe those two particular people a huge, huge apology because we treated them unfairly.
So where we are going now, as fear is being used as a tool of rule, are you familiar with the old Mendelssohn rule?
I never really paid much attention to Peter Mendelssohn. I thought, I just genuinely do not believe he's a very pleasant person.
Well, he was, those of you from Generation Z will not know, but he was instrumental running alongside Tony Blair in all aspects. And he used to say that again, and again. That's what his mantra was, that if you keep pumping a message out again and again, eventually people will start believing it. It's like you are shooting little bullets into their head, and eventually the micro in the head is set and they start believing your ideology. Of course, if you refer back to do you condemn? Do you condemn? Do you condemn? Every day on social media, in news outlets, the first question that is asked is, do you condemn, in different accents, in different sound bites? And that is what the Mendelssohn rule is all about. Repeatedly keep asking, pushing agendas like we have seen right now, that extreme elements have taken over our community, lots of senses of fear being imposed upon us in the community, in our country, in England. And
Well, hang on. I mean, you say extreme elements have taken over our community. I don't understand what extreme elements have
no, I'm
taken over
saying
our
that
place.
that is what's proposed or
No, well,
told to
that's
us
what, but that's what's been proposed for years now. I
for
mean,
years. And
look,
continuous,
I,
I will say to you, it is slow suffocation. That's the
no,
road I'm
I
going
don't, look,
down.
I really don't think so. I mean, look, I sometimes look at the likes of you. I look at the likes of an average Pakistani or Muslim Briton. Quite frankly, I see a lot of them more bizarrely engaged with what British values are than many, like somebody like Michael Gove or even
So what I'm going to ask you a question.
Suella Braverman.
What comes first? Human values, saving human lives, or British values? Which one is more important?
Well, it depends. It depends on how you want to prime British values. British values that the way I uh, grew up to recognize was primarily an aversion to unfairness, primarily an aversion to injustice, and an aversion to bullies. Those are the things that I certainly would recognize as being a unique trait of Britain as opposed to continental Europe. And you can see it right across the board. So, for example, and this is happening right now, at every conceivable opportunity when things have gone bad in Europe, including after the Great Depression, Europe chose to go towards fascism. Italy went towards Mussolini. Germany went towards the National Socialists. Spain went towards General Franco. And Portugal went towards Salazar. Whereas Britain, bizarrely, went more towards the Labour Party. Again, if you look at, and that, I think whoever is trying to make Britain to be seen in the very, very bleak and the place to fear, actually, no. Look at the polls in terms of what is happening in Gaza. The vast majority, the overwhelming majority of British people, whether or not they like Muslims, whether or not they like Palestinians, simply have an aversion to people being crammed in one giant concentration camp and bombed from the air, right? That is innate in British population. That is, quite frankly, stands out from the rest of the Europeans. As much as Suella Braverman and the others on the extreme fringe, on the, you call it populist, no, I call it extreme fringe, almost, call it for what it is, fascism, uh, wanted to stop people speaking out against against something that is morally wrong. I don't, there's no justification for the mass slaughter of women and children. Absolutely no justification. Just as there's no, I mean, on either side, by the way, there's no justification. You may be able to excuse it. You may be able to understand it and empathize. But one thing you can't do is justify.
Of course,
So
you're not
just,
very clear because you're outside and there's a lot of interference, right? So this
so
is important to
so
take
so
note. Yeah.
this, so what it is this. I think Britain is in a much better place than the rest of Europe. Uh, and the reason why I say Britain is a much better place than the rest of Europe is because, unlike in the rest of Europe, where again, the far right in Germany, alternative for Germany, is potentially uh, gonna win a sizable chunk of the German parliament. Unlike France, where there is a serious possibility of Jean-Marie of Marie Le Pen winning and becoming French president, where Portugal is heading towards a party that glorified the old military junta, where Holland has essentially elected an avid racist. Britain's alternative to the vile divisionism and outright racism of some in the Tory party has chosen potentially to go towards the Labour Party. Whether you wish to believe that they are genuinely a left-wing party or not, I personally think they're not. I mean, they're certainly more right-wing than any of the Thatcher governments ever were.
So now I'm going to stop you there. When you say right-wing, the parties themselves have always worked on the principles of left-wing, right-wing, center. And there in itself, division starts. So division starts at top-down. And then we come down.
Let's call it pluralistic.
In our communities, we are being told in Rishi Sunak's recent speech that we are destroying our communities, British values, division, extremism, a whole list that if you were prevalent in media here, you know about. So what I'm saying is that if division is there at the top, it goes right through to the community. Everywhere. I mean, look, there's division.
No one takes what Rishi Sunak says seriously. I mean, all you need to see is the actual cartoons that are going about, comparing him to Roland Draft. I mean, no one is possibly even gonna take that guy seriously, because what he's trying to do is engage in a certain discourse that simply doesn't fit his racial background. I mean, I don't even understand who he's appealing to. If he's appealing to the most extreme racist in Britain, well, then they're going to vote for him because they just simply don't like his skin color. So I really don't understand who he's trying to appeal to. What he should have done is, and I suspect he will look back at his time as Prime Minister and say it's a wasted opportunity, is rather than appease a very small fringe, which is always vocal and always trying to push you to places where you really do not want to go, is actually appeal to the vast majority of what the country is. And the vast majority of the country is, by and large, in Britain, not racist, have a sense of fairness about them, and don't like intolerance. I mean, that's the reality of it. They're by and large very accepting of a lot of things. So I can't understand what his narrative is, and I do not understand what the objective of what he's engaging actually is.
One of the messages I'll share with you, again, we mentioned this word earlier on, is slow suffocation. And one of the messages come through from one of our listeners is saying that for the Muslim community, over the last 30 years, we have been going through a process called slow suffocation, where we have seen so many problems, right down from our mosques to our community leaders, and we see that identity politics have taken over the inner cities in England. So
hang on. It's not as bad. Look, this is a narrative. When I go back to Britain, right, and I really get very, shall we say, stroboscopic views of Britain, because I only go back once every 4 or 5 weeks for a weekend. I don't recognize that. I don't recognize that suffocation. I don't recognize the fact that somehow the British community is now somehow in a much worse place than on the ground level, on the actual ground level, the reality. There's a narrative out there amongst the media and amongst the political class. But you go on an average street in Morley now, right? I don't get racially abused as I did back in the 1980s.
I see. I'll have to interrupt you because quite a few messages I'm getting on my screen here. So we have short time, only 24 minutes left. And what another message coming through is saying that over the years, almost 20 years ago, 25 years ago, the prevent strategy was aimed at the Muslim communities from all the mosques, all the madrasas, and various aspects. And today, we are in cancel culture. We are in decommissioning state right now. Many cases where people are losing their jobs and they are being decommissioned from their places of work because they sent a tweet out which was termed to be political, or it was against a narrative, and they've lost their jobs. Or if you wanted to be a politician and you made a tweet 10 years ago, you are being picked up for it. And you will probably be aware.
There is one thing though. There is one thing. People losing these jobs has got, I mean, it's packaged as identity. But think about the communities that were decimated in South Wales, Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, South Yorkshire, all of those working class communities that were decimated and lost their jobs. They lost their jobs, and the reason why the miners were so vociferously attacked was on an ideological basis. Because here, somewhere along the line, although we get to look at certain angles of it, maybe the religious, maybe the identity, maybe the what you call it, the racial angles, what no one ever looks at is the socio-economic angle of things. It is not a coincidence that somebody of Rishi Sunak's background speaks the same language effectively as somebody like Lee Anderson or somebody like Nigel Farage. Because here, what you cannot ever eliminate, and you don't, it's something that nobody has ever actually engaged in and tried to look at it from that angle, is it really about race? Is it about religion? Or is it about capitalism and socio-economic factors? Because there's a whole, I mean, look, the Muslim community is not more oppressed than the working class communities of Northumberland or County Durham or South Yorkshire.
No, we are not saying community. What we are saying is one individual. If you came here right now in the UK and you made a tweet or you said something, you will get picked up in your place of work and you will be dismissed or you will be suspended. Like you have seen the case of Diane Abbott. What she meant, what she wrote, she got suspended. So we got to stick to the line of this discussion, please.
But then, whose fault is it for simply accepting that fact? Is it Diane Abbott's consistent adherence and loyalty to a party who's effectively saying, you know what, I don't really care about you? Or simply saying, you know, I'm going to make a break with this oppressive racist party. I mean, look, what troubles me is this, and this is, I think, where Britain is potentially at risk. I genuinely believe that Keir Starmer is far worse and far more dangerous than Rishi Sunak will ever be. Because Keir Starmer is going to come with a packaging of somebody who may think the issues that somebody like Lee Anderson is thinking and will say outright, but Keir Starmer will never say it. That's the danger of it. The spectre of the first black woman in Parliament being completely ignored, not given protection, when she was the subject of a criminal offense, I find troubling. I really do. I mean, if you want to discuss about extremism and the fact that how it doesn't respect the rule of law, well, where is the rule of law being applied to somebody who's incited others to murder? The fact that you can say in this day and age, a rich a rich white person, white man, directing others in a private meeting. Fine, it's a private meeting, but you don't know how somebody in the audience is going to take it. That looking at Diane Abbott makes him hate all black women, and she should be shot. I find quite repugnant and repulsive. But what I find more repulsive than the words that were spoken, and more repugnant, is the silence of the former DPP, who is supposed to be the party leader of a party for which she still represents, albeit doesn't hold the whip. His silence is deafening. He, in his position as a DPP, would have any other ordinary member of the public would have got the person who said those words to be picked up by the police, interviewed under caution, and probably, if the CPS was doing their job properly, would have thought, you know what, there's a prima facie case. He may have a defense, but it's a matter for the jury. But the complete impunity with a certain class now in Britain who think that they are completely above the law is quite worrying. And if you want to deal with the issues of extremism and the upholding of the rule of law, then start with members of parliament and start with the political parties first, before going and directing them at the members of the public.
As you are a person of law, I'm going to ask you a question. Is our government complicit in aiding and abetting genocide, and can they be taken to court? I need a fast answer on that. Is a question that has come to me.
Hang on, there's a prima facie case, isn't there? There's a prima facie case, which I think somebody like Keir Starmer, who masqueraded as a human rights lawyer, I quite frankly, looking back when I met him in 2006, I wondered what was special about him. But that's another issue. He was supposed to be a human rights lawyer. That's why I got him to lead me on quite a sensitive case. He ditched it because of his ambition in 2008. But he ought to know, at least sufficiently, that when the highest court in the world says there's a prima facie case of genocide, then any act or in support, material support, can potentially make you complicit in that case. And I'll give an example which he may, as a former DPP, recognize. I see you being beaten up, Zed, on the street, okay? There's somebody in there trying to pull your attacker off. He may be using slightly more force than is necessary. So, for example, he may come at you, at your attacker, with a stick to try and get your attacker off you whilst you're on the ground, and he's kicking you in the head. But in order to stop that particular person from trying to rescue you, somebody like Keir Starmer or Rishi Sunak comes along and gives them a revolver to shoot the person who's trying to save you. What do you think the position would be in law?
You are the lawyer. You should answer that one and keep it short,
well,
because we have little time.
I think the former DPP ought to actually consider that scenario and give the answer, because I know exactly who I would be more comfortable defending. The person who's trying to keep you, your attacker off you, okay, whilst he's kicking you on the ground, rather than the person who then gives your attacker a revolver to try and shoot someone who's trying to essentially act in your self-defense.
So what you're saying,
more comfortable.
What you're saying is the one who supplies the weapons and armory is complicit in aiding and abetting war crimes?
I'm not saying that he is complicit. That's a matter for the courts to decide. What I'm saying is there is a plausible case to answer. But we got to remember we cannot sit here and condemn people, and we cannot sit here and reach a judgment. Judgments are ultimately a matter for the courts. It's quite interesting that the ICJ didn't have a cease and desist order. And if anyone knows anything about the way common law court system works, which the ICJ is significantly influenced by, I cannot stop you by getting an injunction against you from committing a criminal offense. The jobs of the courts is only to uphold the law. They are not there to prevent the commission of an offense. So the idea that some Westminster politicians take, the fact that the ECJ didn't order a halt or a ceasefire is somehow a justification or an exoneration of the Israeli government, well, shows a complete lack of ignorance of the way the court system actually works.
So, how many more people have to be slaughtered? And the word genocide comes into play, because now it's a worry. One of the messages comes to me is that even to say genocide is not permissible, that it is a genocide. Is it not a genocide? How many people more have to die before the world will wake up? Throughout the world right now, in Australia, I don't know if you're aware, but students are striking to protest. In America, in San Francisco, the whole airport was brought to a standstill for 158 minutes because they said it's 158 days now this has been going on. And now you can see that slavery, when I talk about slavery, I read in books how people were gathered in one place, then they were placed onto ships, onward bound to various countries in the world. Now here, the plan which we read about a couple of days ago, that all these people are going to be put onto a safe island, and then they will be onward bound on ships again. So we are back to the slaves for sale, humans for human slaves, or whichever terminology you wish to use. We are going to be selling these human beings, and countries are going to be asked to take these people, and will give you money for each person you take, right? How many do you think, who is going to take, which country is going to take these on? Do you think in the UK we'll take them on like we did the Ukrainians? Will we take on maybe 100,000 out of the couple of million there is over there?
You know what is disturbing? What is disturbing is when I was passing through Luton Airport last year in February, I landed, went to the luggage belt, to the carousel, and there was a huge sign. I looked at it. I thought, you know what? It's just unfortunate. And then my 12-year-old kid looked at that sign, which said, Ukrainian refugees, please go seek assistance at the help desk. And he turned around to me and said, Dad, how about Syrian refugees, Yemenis, and Africans? Is it because they're not white? You know, and I know what the answer to that question is that you posed. Britain will not take any of them. Britain would rather have them drown in the sea. And what I'm saying, Britain, I mean political Britain. I don't mean the British public. There is a complete disconnect between the average person on the streets of Britain who will still go. I'll give you the town in which I was born, Morley.
Okay.
They will go to the barber shop to have their hair cut by a Kurdish refugee, not even seeking to ask where he comes from, whereas the political class have got a problem with that barber being from Kurdistan, cutting their hair. And
Okay,
that is the problem.
now I'm going to say to you that 66 to 70% of the British public are out on the streets marching, protesting from across the spectrum of different ethnicities in our country. We have Jewish people, we have all ethnicities that are out there marching. More people are out there protesting, exercising their right to democracy, and they are being called all sorts of name by political Britain. Political Britain will not accept that 66 to 70% of the population wants to stop this genocide. They will not accept it. Political Britain, who is political Britain? The leaders, the cabinet, the members of parliament, the councillors. Now, have we seen 50% of them to say stop? 50% of them. We've seen a fringe percentage of them. We have 650 MPs and we have 17,000 councillors in the country. Now, councillors, they take a step back. They will not come forward. And they said, it's not our problem, it's a land dispute. These are prominent councillors who have told me that it's a land dispute. That's all it is. We can't get involved. It's something for national government. People are passing the buck on. Now, from the messages I'm receiving, I'm under pressure that why are you not raising this issue? Why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? So many of the long-winded stories you are telling me, people are not identifying with those because they are really in fear. People are living in fear right now. That why, I don't know if you know, but just a few days ago, Michael Gove, Oscar winner Michael Gove from the Trojan Horse, he said that he's completely redefined the meaning of extremism. When there are extreme elements who will put up with racism, they will not call it out in his government, right? Why are the people of color in our government complicit and not stepping forward? Why? Why they're not doing that? You got to call out racism, fascism. It's going to have impacts. Our crime on the streets will increase. We will be disoriented. In every city in England, we have over 50 languages spoken. We have a very diverse community, and we will create more division. A message here just comes on my screen that the community will become more divided. Why? Because political Britain is failing to step up and do the right thing. They are reactive. They are not coming up with the solutions. Why? Another message here. Why is racism being managed? For years and years and years, we manage racism. We don't get to the root cause of that racism, starting from nursery school to university to the end. Why?
Well, I mean, look, I'll tell you why. Because, I mean, you know what? You think children, irrelevant of their background, grow up to be racist? It comes from the home, doesn't it? I'll give you an example. When I came into Britain in 1982, Leeds Grammar School, 30% of the kids there were Jewish. Do you think some of the kids, not all of them, some of the Jewish kids, calling me rat man and all sorts of other racial abuse? And that was just a minority. That just came into their head. No, it's the environment in which they were brought. So just as there were my best friends, somebody like Mark Tama or Gideon Camerman to this day, who I keep in touch with, they weren't racist. We had difference of opinion on a political matter, but it never went to the point of, you know what, I dislike you because you're like that. It never went to that. So it is actually a circumstance of the way people are brought up. And if you're brought up in an ignorant environment, in a environment where your parents breed that sort of attitude into your mind, then essentially, naturally, their children will find that to be normal behavior. No one is ever born racist.
Okay, here's another message that's come to me. The only way you're going to solve these crises is to say, defend yourself. And to defend yourself, you need the right arsenal. You need the right weapons. And you can't do that if is only one country allowed to defend itself and not the other? So messages are coming very fast now. Another message. I'm sorry, I've got to cut you out. I've got to read these messages. And another message has come to say that they will not allow a one-state solution, nor will they allow a two-state solution. The agenda is very clear that they're going to wipe out the whole area for a different use. And there are so many messages like that coming out. So people, I can see, are incensed. People are very, very upset and angry because political Britain has not stepped up to put a stop to this. Another message has come is that the UK is a junior collaborator with its big brother, the USA. They could make one telephone call and stop this nonsense, but they are failing to do so. So we are in the midst of war everywhere. Right now, my brothers and sisters, we have strife in Ukraine. We have the issue with Russia. We have issue in Yemen ongoing. At any one time in the last 20 years, there have been 5 serious areas of conflict. And political Britain and political Europe, political Western nations has failed to step up to act in a responsible manner, disproportionate. There's issues everywhere of test of legality, test of objectivity.
Zed, let me. We can all criticize, okay? Look onto yourself before you criticize on it. I'll give you an example. A lot of the Muslim community, the reason why they like Labour, unfortunately, is because financially it suits their person. You know, the welfare state. Well, look, there's a cost to that because no one ever has been able to live not having to go to work or earn a living, expecting the state to do it. How is Britain going to pay for your idleness? I used to say this to my clients whenever they used to criticize the country. For them to have got a legal aid certificate, unfortunately, an Iraqi child had to die because nothing in this life is for free. So there has to be a complete change in attitude amongst us before we expect the change of attitude onto the others. All of these people who are posting these messages, you bet your bottom dollar, when it comes to the election, they will go like sheep and they will vote Labour.
Is that because they have a kiss and makeup relationship with Labour?
Where it's in their vested interest. It's in their own vested interest. It is in their pockets. It is the certain things that they get invited to. It's the certain letters that they get given after their names. We are all to blame. It is our own greed, our own inhumanity, our own essentially selfishness. We cannot judge others when we are ourselves to blame. If the Muslim community wants to do something different, wants to really make a show, there's no point getting angry about it. Go and do something about it. Go and vote for an independent MP. Because quite frankly, there is no difference. It is a uniparty. That party is a uniparty. There are fringes across which are slightly different, but you know for a fact there is no difference between the Tories and the Labour Party other than one is better packaged than the other. The content is exactly the same. And so long as you continuously to vote for the same people with the same agenda, you're going to end up with the same result. Maybe there comes a time when you think, you know what, I've had enough. I don't particularly want a choice between a closeted racist and a honest racist.
So currently we are in the midst of election year, and this is a very, very important matter, what you have raised. Throughout the country, change is happening, and we are in the midst of what we call identity politics. And throughout the inner cities, we have this problem, identity politics.
But why do we have to get obsessed with identity? Each individual has got their own identity. Why do we have to fit into certain stereotypes of what people ought to be? Why should a Muslim actually fit in a certain identity that has been foisted on him by the authorities? Why should an Englishman be of a certain identity? Why can he not be his own individual self? I mean, I don't really actually buy into this identity nonsense. Each individual has got their own thoughts, their own beliefs. They formulate it over time. Whoever wishes to be a believer can do so. Whoever wishes to disbelieve can do so. It is, essentially, God hates the unjust, the unfair. Why do people have to fit into certain compartments? Why can they just not be as individuals?
Okay, some positive news to report here today, that today, after Zohar Salah, we will be hosting the LZF, the Leicester Zakat Fund. It's one of the first in the Midlands region, where locally we will put together a fund which will support Zakat, and across the board we will do that. So this is very important, and we shall all join in at 2 p.m. So we are all able to work together as a team. So what I would like all of us to do is take part and be mad. Be mad. That means make a difference, all of us. Be the best version of yourself during this Ramadan. Step forward, come and make a difference. There are so many issues that we have to deal with in our community. In the midst of political upheaval throughout the country with what's happening there in the Middle East, we all have to step up. And please get involved in these initiatives. Let me know what you can do. Come forward, give us a call on the radio on 0116 4822 and you can even send us a message on 077 488 55055. It has been a very interesting program today. Although Osama is far away from us and he's sharing his thoughts and his expertise in the legal profession. He's a barrister. Human rights. Were you a human rights barrister, Osama?
I was actually, yeah.
I see.
I was, and I do miss it. I think it actually made me what I am at the moment. It opened my eyes to a lot of things.
So somebody sent me a message here, Osama, saying your guest is frivolous and with his commentary. And I think you are chilling as though you are lying down in bed and not sitting square and directing your thoughts. And you've got a background there like you're sitting in your garden. So people are picking up,
I'm not sitting in my garden. I'm sitting in somebody else's
So here
garden.
we have technology now. People can pick up on all these body language issues. So Osama, you need to really step up. And you got to sit square, not be lying down, not to be lying down. These are live comments. These are live comments and observations coming on my screen here. So you got to stick to the point. Another message says that today the West is morally corrupt and political elites who are governed by the money oligarchs. 99% of our political sectors are controlled by the money oligarchs. So people are getting switched on. Hence, they're learning all their skill sets on the social media. We have seen...
They can do... Why don't they do something about it?
Well, you know, an interest...
let them step up. It's all well and good to criticize. What are we doing about it? They're corrupt, fine. Now, you can easily pass judgment on that political elite. What would you do if you were put in the same position? Let's say I'm not there to judge. I wouldn't know what I would do if I was put in the same position. Not saying what they're doing is right. What I'm saying is, if don't just try and moralize and judge people when we wouldn't know what our reaction would be if we were put in the same position.
Of course,
I mean,
I
a
will.
lot
I
of us
will.
would be.
Message has just come through that in the last Holocaust, during the period of the Second World War, we did not have fingertip video, social media apparent to us. So the genocide at that time was not there in the public domain. It was there in the political domain, military domain. Now we have a genocide which is in the public domain with the social media. Now, how many more legs blown off? Children in despair, children being starved, famine. How much more do we have to take? Across the globe, there are people protesting across the globe. Now, I recall this happened during the Iraq War, and marches were happening, yet the political world, they were ruling, and there was no change happened. 99.9% of state money goes, and not a few improvised people wanting to get more money from the state. So there's so many messages coming through. I can feel that people are really, really incensed, and they want, it's like they're all letting off steam together on this program. It's 11 o'clock in the morning. We started. I thought nobody will be awake. They'll catch up on the YouTube or on the social media afterwards. But no, I was not correct. The messages I'm receiving now clearly tell me that people are absolutely worried. And they are in a state of fear with what happened recently. You must be aware that 4 or 5 Muslim organizations, they have been not yet completely banned, but there will be some legal cases to be dealt with, that if our politicians are ruling the roost and shutting you off.
Look, Al, there's one thing that people have got to be assured of.
We have 2 minutes, so please keep it short.
Look, Britain has probably one of the best judiciary anywhere in the world. If you think that the government is able to push policies through just on a whim, extreme policies through, then all you need to do is look at what happened with the Rwandan policy. Whatever people may think about the narratives that are being pushed about the country.
That you mentioned Rwanda. Sorry to cut you short. You remind me of Suella Braverman. I don't know if she's still dreaming to see the first plane with refugees go to Rwanda. You know, I don't know if somebody can verify that.
I'll tell you why it won't happen. Because Britain has genuinely got one of the best judiciaries in the world. They have a sense of fairness. Look, Britain is the country that gave the world the concept of equity. It is more interested, and common law has genuinely always been more interested in substance rather than form. And that is protected by a judiciary of very, very significant, decent judges. Competence may vary, but one thing I can assure you, because I have dealt with them day in, day out for 14 years, 15 years, they are actually very decent and uncorruptible.
My brother Ossama, we have to cut you now because the program is coming to an end. I wish you all well and a safe, happy Ramadan. All of you, be mad, make a difference, come forward and join us next week. We'll be discussing more relevant topics. Jazakallah.